Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and salam sejahtera to our beloved lecturer Dr. Muhammad Nizam bin Yunus and my fellow friends. Today we are going to present to you our proposal of efficient preservation programs of digital archive. Throughout the digitalization revolutions, technologies has been used rapidly in most of industries all around the world. The technologies become more advanced in line with the current trends. Today, traditional method in preservation archive materials has transformed to digitizations and electronics archive preservations. Digital preservations consists of process aimed to ensure the continuous accessibility of digital materials. To do this, involving finding ways to represent what was original materials. Present to use by combining software and hardware tools acting on data. This method has received the reputed approval from global agency, information professionals and practitioners. Thus, this has influenced the process information is created, gathered, managed, processed, stored, and accessed according to the record life cycle. Digital preservation is very essential and relevant, making it in the list of important records that need to be protected as same as other traditional archive materials. Preservation process is to lengthen the record life cycle that become concerns by reducing the rate of decay that caused by external issues. By preservation process, archive will be able to control and reduce the rate of record deteriorations by providing policy statements and manage the surrounding of archive material. A part of the strategy to ensure efficiency preservation programs of digital archive, policy statements to preservation digital records and materials has been made to provide information accessibility to the wider community. This proposal has underlined a few problem statements according to the proposal objective. The first one will be the number of storage facilities that needs to store the records according to the capacity. Next, storage or well-trained staff to handle the digital preservation process. Third, lack of awareness towards digital preservations. Fourth, system that keep updating that cause data threat. And finally, strict organization standards and policy. The objective of digital preservations are to ensure the future's archive materials transformed into digitizations. The materials can be established as important as provided significant values to the organizations in long term. The objectives are to provide enough storage room in particular facilities to store the records according to the facility's capacity. Second, to provide the professional staff that are able to handle the preservation process. The third one, to encourage organizations in transit the digital preservations. Next, to identify the threat of data caused by the new formats of system. And finally, to review the policy and standard of organizations' digital preservation. To archive the objective of digital preservation programs, our organizations has identified the needs to comply with the prevalent standards and policies of digital preservation community. Our organizations dedicate to develop our own digital preservation policy standards and strategy in accordance with the International Organization of Standards ISO 14641's Open Archive Information System OAIS reference model ISO 14721. In addition, our organization aims to align the policy standards and strategy with trustworthy repository audit and certificate TRAC standard ISO 16363, and a part of developing applying the policy at the operating level, our organizations also will identify the policies and standards in strategies, management level, and outsiders party according to the ISO 16919.
Next, the purposes of digital archival preservation. First, to ensure the continuity of digital legacy items for as long as they are required to be preserved. Second, to ensure the digital materials can be accessed efficiently, effectively, holistically, proactively, and accountably. Third, in all elements, digital preservation is to keep time and space as little as possible. Next, to put the materials in a secure location and keep the important data safe. Lastly, to mitigate risk while also achieving best practices in order to protect and retain access to the digital materials. Next is roles and responsibilities. Roles and responsibilities are crucial to set up in digital archival preservation. It is to define who should be responsible for managing and safeguarding the digital materials across an organization. There are a few roles and responsibilities that are crucial in implementing the digital archival preservation program. The first one is digital archivist. Digital archivist is accountable for the digital assets donated to and developed by Special Collection and Archive, including the compilation of metadata records, as well as regulations governing the creation, storage, preservation, organization, description, and access to these items. Next is records manager. Records manager is responsible in ensuring that information as an asset is safe and well handled in a corporation. Records manager also must develop and implement training and awareness initiative to educate personnel on proper record keeping procedures. Next is services providers and contractors. They are responsible to carry out digital preservation operations. This connection must be properly agreed upon and documented to guarantee that all parties are held accountable. Next is depositors and donors. Depositors and donors are responsible in ensuring that materials are delivered in a condition acceptable for inclusion in the archive according to what have been stated in the policy which the acceptance of deposits of digital materials. The last one is preservation specialist. Preservation specialist is responsible to make recommendations for long-term storage and access to digital materials.
Is scope. The digital preservation program is dependable for recognizing, securing, and providing way to protect and ensure access to the digital resources. Not all the digital sources received or created are kept because of criteria limits, rather than limited cooperation in expert preserving applications of format that have proven and qualified preservation method. Each record format's level of preservation is tied to it. The available maintenance procedure are determined by the maintenance level, which move over to learn the basic on the material required to maintain the format. Verifications and provisions of resources for collector and repository must be made at the level of upkeep appropriate of each type of record format. Next is operating principle. Organizations will use for the following principle as step to guide the development, implementations, and management of the organization digital preservation program, such as first is create a digital preservation system that is scalable, reliable, long-lasting, and highly secure. And then secure metadata is essential for the usage of digital assets of example, administrative descriptions, maintenance, authenticity, copyright, and technical. Next is manage the digital preservation functions, hardware, software, and storage media. Component in line with environmental regulations, quality control criteria, and security needs. Next is to ensure the data is appropriate. When the appropriate, use one sources solutions to make the digital archive as accessible as possible. Next is copyright, intellectual property protections, and other legal rights relating to the copying, preserving, updating, and use of the digital information must all be respected. Apply the open archive information system and other acceptable digital preservation regulations. Next is selecting and acquisitions. The process of selecting which resource should always be included to the archive collections is known as selection. Selecting relevant archive item and source that fulfill the needs of the community necessitate skill, knowledge, and the necessary instrument. A question is the process to select, requesting, and reserving material for a library or archive collection through purchase, exchange, or gift, and may also include budgeting and negotiating with the outsider organizations such as author, vendor, or seller. Selections and equations are used for the following purposes. First is determine the risk of loss of material such as format, applications, and their material. Second is to make archival material accessible in the secure and convenient manner. Third is look for way to expand and establish digital preservation technique that are appropriate for our organization material. Fourth is to develop and be practices for digital preservations in the organization that are adequate for both international and international standard.
Hi, my name is Binti AZHAR and I am the third presenter. I will explain about the challenges in developing the digital preservation. Development towards digital archive preservation is not an easy task. There are several challenges that need to be faced throughout the implementation of a digital preservation program, including the first challenges is insufficient storage. Due to too much archival material existing in the archive centers, digital preservation is also likely to require a greater rate of space. Digital storage of archive also requires many modifications in handling so that archives are stored in a more secure state. The second challenge is changing level of technology. Handling archival material in traditional or physical form to be converted to digital is also a relatively difficult method and requires more precision. This is because all system and digital system have huge different gaps. In fact, some have partially failed to be converted to digital due to the nature of the material being rotten and very sensitive to updating. The third challenges is financial constraints. To implement a digital preservation program, finance must be one of the elements that needs to be taken into account. Digital preservation requires a high level of knowledge and technology among workers and computing operation system. High and ongoing funding costs are critical to ensuring effective and efficient digital preservation. The next challenge is inadequate professional staff to manage the most recent system. Digital preservation requires a professional workforce in the digital field. This is due to the fact that digital processes differ from older computing systems. The digital update system is also complicated and generally requires meticulous attention to detail. As a result, professional force is required to avoid accidental data deletion and loss. Last but not least, the challenges of implement digital preservation is integrity and validity of archival content vulnerability. Undetected alteration in digital content are easier than traditional objects. Such alterations may damage the content originality and integrity. Illegal changes must be prohibited and any appropriate changes must be supervised. To develop digital preservation, Archive Center should provide appropriate digital equipment that meets digital preservation criteria. It is to ensure that digital preservation operations can run smoothly and to avoid any problems during the handling processes of archival materials. Here,
I list out the important tools involved during the process of digitizing the archive. The first one is computer. Computer is important to access the record. Next, word processor such as Microsoft Word or Excel, printers or fax machines to print out anything relevant documents regarding archival that has been digitized, photocopying machines to make any duplications of forms, manuscripts or maps. That were the examples of the tools that needed in the process of digitizing archive. Next, scanner. These tools also vital in digital preservation. It can help staff in capturing, inserts, and transfer the whole records from physical form to digital easily. The scanner also gives the exact look as the original records one. Furthermore, internal or local networking also important. Internet services considered as a crucial element in the digital preservation as it will facilitate the accessing and retrieval process of record needed. The stable connection of internet is better for speedy retrieval. And the last one is CD or DVD. CD or DVD acts as a backup whenever the accessing process disrupted. User can use CD or DVD as a reference that contains the same components or data or content as in the record. Next is financial section. In ensuring the digital preservation projects run smoothly, the financial aspect need to be taken care of and should be in a strong position to further enhance the digital preservation system. Therefore, before embarking on a digital preservation project, archivists must verify that they have adequate financial resources. Institutional commitments. For this statement, our organization has prepared an adequate budget for digital conservation projects. We have also made careful budget planning to ensure that all objectives of this program can be successfully achieved. We also have several bodies involved in this project which will contribute assistance in the form of finance and services. For the partnership and collaboration, additionally, our institution also engaged with the University National Archive of Malaysia to first convey and share the great findings of other digital archive projects. Second, improving the digital preservation development process by time to time. And the last one, boost the depth of understanding to ensure all affiliates bodies manage to gain numerous benefits from preservation digital program.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Binti OMAR. Now I will present to you about our security measures. For the security has been described in terms of theft and damage prevention, and our organization will secure your record keeping and preserving records for as long as they are required to be maintained. It is necessary to make these choices and preserve them thoroughly. First, what we have in our security measures, we will do the encryption. Encryption could also be included on data received from a depositor during ingest. Encryption is a cryptographic technique for securing digital data by transforming it into a jumbled format. Encrypted digital material in a repository will only be accessible over time if our organization controls its key. Next is our employees' responsibilities. We can help in ensuring the accessibility and other special collections digital resources by identifying the proper conceptual arrangement and digital storage structure. Next, we also facilitate in the preservation of digital archive material by evaluating the necessity for conservation operations such as
document cleaning, repairing, deacidification, and humidification. Next, we move on to the storage system. The final outcome can become very high rates of data security, with access to material when necessary, reasonable and reliable expenses. The cloud storage versatility enables relatively quick and low-cost testing and piloting. Cloud features also give simple, automated application to many sites, as well as accessibility to professionally managed digital storage and integrity checks. And lastly, for our security measures, we have the strategies for multi-copy storage. Fire, flood, malicious attack and obsolescence of storage systems and technologies are examples of risks to consider. Making several copies of digital files is important to maintaining a basic level of data security. We can use multiple forms of storage for each copy, spreads the risks and ensures that a failure with one technology does not impact the others. Next, we move on to our organizational Gantt chart to set up an efficient preservation program of digital archive in our organization. So, this Gantt chart can help us in efficient time management. So, let's take a look for the task. For the catalog request, it begins in week 1. Then we send requested catalog to our customer in week 1 and early week 2. Next, when clients are making decision around week 1 to end of week 2. So for the next task, we can see if we receive order and preparation, we manage it in week 3 till early week 4. So when we have done our preparation, we can start our implement programs in week 4 to early week 5.
To conclude, with the development of technology today, every organization should consider establishing digital archival preservation, which might be a positive investment for the organization despite some implementation issues in terms of recognizing, protecting and giving solutions to protect and ensure access to digital asset. The study determined that the goal offered to address the challenges that concerns a digital archive are relevant. When it's come to digital archive, there are also some rules to follow, such as standards and best practices, training, and also transparency. It is indeed necessary for informational organizations to provide long-term access to their value material. Aside from that, the digital archive preservation serves as a backup for the original physical resources, particularly when the original are old and cannot be rescued for deterioration.